Anyway, if you can find a seat, because we are going to move the program along. Again, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Gary Chamber of Commerce and our members, I do want to say how delighted we are that so many of you showed up for this very important occasion. I want to take this opportunity now to recognize some of our local elected leaders who are present here. Our Calumet Township trustee, Kimberly Robertson. We wave your hand. That's Kim over there. Representing Congressman Peter Visklowski is Mark Lopez. Mark? One of our fine Crown Point council persons and chamber member, Andrew Keers, is here. One of our newest members of the Gary Common Council, but certainly no stranger to elected office, Mike Brown. A friend of the chamber, a former colleague of mine, our 3rd District Council person, Mary Brown. The Gary Common Council President, Ronald Brewer. Our 4th District Council person, Linda Barnes Caldwell. I said 5th District. Surely it must be something you guys ate. I said 5th District. Sorry about that, Linda. And she's frequent too. I don't know how I messed that one up. I guess only because maybe I wanted to take a plug at our 4th District Council person, Carolyn Rogers. Hey, Carolyn. Another former colleague of mine. The incoming Lake County Clerk, in fact, the Lake County Clerk, Judge Lorenzo Arredondo. And I would like to have all of you have a collective round of applause for one of our former elected officials who had to leave because her husband is ill and has a doctor appointment. But how about a round of applause in her absence for Senator Earlene Rogers? Now, I would like to make just a couple of brief announcements here. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, Meridian Title Corporation, Palmer Myers and Cindy Finley, and also Majestic Star Casino, Barry Cragen and his staff. We want to thank all of you for being those sponsors of ours. We want to congratulate Dr. Rose Green Thomas. She's the proprietor of fashion consultant. They had a grand opening of Rose's Closet Boutique at 7608 Broadway, so let's patronize her. Ozinga, Indiana, RMC, was recently honored as the Small Business Employer of the Year by the Joliet Region Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Ozinga's here. Let's give them a round of applause. Merrim Healthcare Center, primary healthcare clinic of Porter Stark Services, achieved 100% compliance during the 2018 Health Resources and Services Administration annual visit. So let's give them a round of applause. And the upcoming Urban League Diversity Luncheon is coming up. You have that information on the table, but also Vanessa Allen McLeod, who is the CEO of the Urban League, will receive this Friday, giving you a scoop, a diversity award in Indianapolis. Let's give her a round of applause. Our committee meetings, January 16th, our Economic Business Development meeting meets at 9 a.m. Our Public Policy Committee meets, that's on January 16th. On January 22nd, our Public Policy Committee meets at 9:30 a.m. And on the 24th of January, our Education Committee meets at 11 a.m. So at this time, folks, I want to take the opportunity to, again, thank our speaker for appearing here. This is always a signature event for us at the Chamber and for you, because it gives you a sneak preview of the wonderful things that are occurring in our city, and you get it firsthand from the person who knows better than anybody. We are proud, as the Gary Chamber of Commerce, to have as our guest this afternoon the illustrious, the distinguished, the honorable mayor of the city of Gary. Please, let's welcome Karen Freeman Wilson. how to be a politician. Now the mayor.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank the Chamber CEO, Chuck Hughes, for such a gracious introduction. I think Carmen was sitting there trying to figure out who he was talking about. But no, I appreciate not only the introduction, Chuck, but your leadership and your partnership here with the Chamber of Commerce. And you, along with Harold Puckett and the entire board, have been a good partner in creating and helping the city to create an environment for businesses to come to the city of Gary. And so we want to thank you for that. And you know, I'm still trying to figure out what our split should be for the first meeting of the year. We'll talk about that for the next one, but it is my distinct privilege and pleasure to support the Chamber of Commerce as you work on behalf of the business community. I also want to take an opportunity to acknowledge all of the elected officials. I know that Chuck has introduced each and every one of you, but I want to ask you to please stand, because to a person, you have been a tremendous partner. So please stand again and be acknowledged. I would also be remiss if I did not at least give a special acknowledgement to the Gary Common Council. As we work to guide the city together through challenging times, they have, under the leadership of President Ron Brewer and Vice President Linda Barnes Caldwell, Finance Chair Mary Brown, and Member Carolyn Rogers, who recently announced her retirement, they have been great colleagues and great friends, great partners on behalf of the city of Gary. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of them. And now with our newest council member, Mike Brown, who is not only a leader in this community on the council, but has led countywide. We have a tremendous group of elected officials who are working on behalf of the business community and all of the citizens of this community, and it is my honor to work with them. And then there is a group of folk that I work with day in, day out, and I had an opportunity to sit down with most of them at lunch last Monday, and it was just my opportunity to say thank you to them, and that is the department heads and department managers in the city of Gary. Please stand and be recognized, and let me just express my heartfelt thanks for each and every one of you. I need you guys to stand longer than that. And, you know, I'm going to do this. I know I only have 25 minutes, but this is a good way to spend my money. Stand back up so I can give you names. Because it's also an opportunity for you to put faces with names. So at the middle table, we have our controller, Angie Hayes. We have our community development director, Arlene Colvin. We have our city attorney, Greg Thomas. Our corporation counsel, Mikkel Allen Winfrey. We have our interim building commissioner, Jackie Rosario. We have our director of constituent services, or the complaint department, as has been LaShawn Brooks. We have our chief of staff to my right, Dana Bennett. That's my boss. We have our director of HR, Dee Barber, who I might add has been working a lot of overtime here lately. We have our director of compliance, Tammy Davis, and she's left some literature. Back to my right, we have Matee Williams, who is our director of recycling. We have our fire chief, Paul Bradley, trying to, I think, hide. We also have one of Gary's finest, Officer Simon Lilly. We have our Director of the Health Department, Shirley Hawkins, our Director of Green Urbanism, Brenda Scott Henry. We have our Police Chief, Richard Allen. We have the Director of the Gary for Life program, Joy Holliday. We have our Director at the Marquette Park, Kamisha Jackson, and he moved the light, so I'm hoping there's no one next to Kamisha. And then we have our Director of Public Works, Clotilde LeBroy. And who did it? So I can't see somebody behind me. Oh, and our Director of IT, who's been working all morning, and Lloyd Keith. So I just want, and Director of Communications, LaLosa Dent Burns. So thanks to each and every one of you. And of course you heard Lieutenant Thad Brown, who almost outed the undercover boss when we were filming at his station. He wouldn't move. Where's Lieutenant Brown? There he is. Yeah, they kept trying to get him to move. He wouldn't move out of the shop. So today, I really want to, because this is the business organization, the premier business organization for our city. So I want to focus on business. It's not that I won't talk about other things, but I will give you a preview for the state of the city. And that is on February 22nd at the Genesis Center. And we will walk through city finances in great detail at that time. And so we want to talk about business today because I know that you're interested in business, but we will also touch on some of the other aspects which are directly related to business. And before I start though, I almost forgot, but I didn't forget, and I don't want to be in trouble when I go through the door. I just want to introduce my husband, Carmen Wilson, and say thank you to him, because he bears a lot of the brunt of me being able to do what I do. And we also have a special guest from the state of Indiana, and that is our Inspector General. And many of you have probably not met her. I was presenting at a business event last month in Indianapolis, Lori Torres. So please stand and be recognized. Thank you for being here. I know that not many people want to meet you in your official capacity, but this is a great time to say hi. So she's not here in that regard. So we're talking about business today, and while we have throughout the room kind of displayed things that we think are significant relative to the business community, I wanted to start with the bread and butter of not just this community, but any community, and that's small business. 60% of people who are employed in this country, and the statistics ring true in the city of Gary, are employed in small businesses. How many of you consider yourselves to either be a proprietor or participant in some way in a small business? So if you look at the hands in this room, then you know that to be true. And one of the things that we made a priority this year is to provide additional support, to provide additional opportunities for our small businesses. Many of you know that Art House, the social kitchen, the Bloomberg and Knight Public Art Project, is a culinary incubator. We're incubating small businesses there. But in addition to Art House, we have the Gary, the GMI program, the Gary Micro Business Institute, where we don't just focus on culinary businesses, but we focus on any type of business that you want to start. And while it is not, it's a 12-week program, and so it can't take you from soup to nuts, it does provide the fundamental information that you need and meets you where you are in the creation of your business project. Now, Diana Sandlin is here. She runs that program along with Carla Henderson, who is not here, from our Department of Commerce for the city. But it's a key program that allows those who are even thinking about small businesses to begin that process and to start to put that idea into action. And those of you who are thinking about it or whose business has been underway, we certainly encourage you. And this year, we're starting a program with the First Financial Bank. I know that Andy Karras is here. Andy, where are you? All right, Andrew. And they are going to be working with us to provide micro business loans for our small businesses in this community. They are a new partner for the city. We are excited about this partnership and about the opportunity that it provides. In addition to that, I just wanted to highlight some of the small businesses that have started and that are underway just in 18, and then talk a little bit about their expansion in 19. The Janice Powell State Farm Agency, the R&R, Ransomford and Ross Restaurant. You're here in the back half of that building, and if you haven't been in the front, then we would certainly invite you there, because there's always some excitement going on. Early when they started, they had a comedy show, well-attended, packed house, right here in this spot, and I sat in the wrong place. I sat down front. And needless to say, I was a part of the comedy routine. And so now I know the next time there's a comedy show, I sit in the back of the room. Tequilas and taco. And you know, whether you are focused on the tequila or the taco, you can't go wrong there. All pet supplies. And they have pet food for all of the pets right on Broadway in the Glen Park area. And we've been talking and are excited about the expansion of Jay's Breakfast Club to a second location. So that's a great business and one that has been ongoing but is expanding this year. We also want to take this opportunity. How many of you see the business registration form that is on your table? There's a form, and I won't require you to raise your hand, but we try to register all businesses in this community. Now, I'm not going to ask you if you're registered or not, but what I am going to do is to encourage you to register. Because what that does is when people come to us, and we'll talk a little bit more about when that happens, and ask for an insurance company or a local contractor or some other local business that we'd like to prefer, we start in the building department, we start in public works, and we start with Tammy Davis because you have been registered as an official Gary business and you've been certified for procurement by her office. So if you have not registered, if you've not signed up as an official Gary business with Tammy Davis, please do, because that's going to be important as I will share with you why now. So we talked about small businesses. Well, we also have large business, and in fact, our founding largest business made a significant announcement and has started a significant investment in the city of Gary this year. a minimal commitment of $750 million from U.S. Steel. That's significant. And a lot of people ask me, how did that happen? And I say, I went up to Pittsburgh and banged on the table and slammed on the door and said, you need to... No, that's not how it happened. That's not how it happened at all. We had a number of conversations, and we're still completing the negotiations, but we had a number of conversations about their desire to add capital improvement to one of their plants and to do it significantly throughout the enterprise, but they were going to focus that investment in at least one location. And there were at least 3 other places that they were thinking about. And as we started that conversation and as we worked as a team to make that case for why we thought they should invest in their flagship, we also talked about the importance of their presence, not just the presence along the northern part of the lake, not just their presence in the city of Gary in terms of their plant or the Broadway gate, the Buchanan Street gate, the Virginia Street gate, not just that, but we talked about the fact that we need representatives from U.S. Steel on boards and commissions. We need them volunteering in this community, and that those types of things don't cost anything, and how important it is for them to be here. And so for the first time that I can remember in a long time, on December 21st, the company worked with the U.S. Steel workers to give out over 1,000 dinners to individuals from all over Northwest Indiana. And they did it at the Genesis Center. So they talked about how they wanted to make it bigger in the future, but I was so pleased because that was a significant first step for them to take in terms of re-engaging in the community. And so $750 million that will be placed in their existing plant. And here's the opportunity that we continue to talk to them about. Those of you who know folks and who may be in communication with people who work at the mill and who have ties there understand that they have a number of people who will be retiring. And once upon a time, and I know this because my grandfather did it for so many of our relatives, you could just know someone who worked there, and they could get you in to the mill. That's a lot more complicated now. And so what we want to work with Ivy Tech to do, what we want to work with some of our other training and Work One and others to do, is to create that pathway for local citizens so that as those individuals retire, we can get people coming in. Right now, on their website, there's an advertisement for a student, Chancellor Lowe, for a student who is in the business, who's getting a degree in business, and who wants to pursue a career in procurement. So they're looking to recruit someone who is completing their sophomore year now. So that's really, really important that we create that pipeline for local residents so that as U.S. Steel grows, those opportunities will grow, but not just for local residents, for local businesses. We are so fortunate to be sponsored by Meridian Title. That's a local business. Yes, it's national, but they do work locally. Is there an opportunity for Title Real Estate and to be sponsored by Majestic Star Casino? And thank you to the Majestic team. And we know that when everybody does well, their business does even better. So that's the important aspect of having a $750 million commitment from U.S. Steel. And of course, the hallmark of that commitment is that as that type of investment grows, the assessed valuation in the city of Gary grows. And those of you who have taken time to look at it and really read our financial recovery plan, you know that a portion of it has to do with the increased revenue from the increased assessed valuation. We know because of the factors that have led to the deficit that you can't cut your way out of this challenge. You really do have to grow your way out. And that $750 million commitment takes us a significant way towards our efforts to grow our way out. The airport, the Gary-Chicago International Airport, the significance of the airport, the significant event at the airport this year was the development and the establishment of a general aviation customs facility, as well as the additional infrastructure that was added on the runway and around the runway area, and then, of course, in front of the airport. We installed or laid an $8 million road, improvements to Airport Road. And so not only do you have improvements on the airport, and to date we've had 18 international flights come in and out of Gary Airport. So the customs facility isn't just there for show, it's there because, and in fact, the first international flight, I believe, came from Copenhagen. So that's significant. And not just international, about, I think a week ago, maybe a little more, a flight fueled up and took off going to Hawaii out of the Gary Airport. That's possible because of the runway extension that was done in 15. And so you understand then, you do that in 15, you get customs, all of that just grows. And it's a process, and one that, you know, people often say, somebody said it, in fact, a week ago, there's nothing happening at the airport. No, that's not true. In fact, since 15, revenue has increased by 30% at the Gary Airport. So there's a lot happening. The problem is because, you know, the average person, myself included, doesn't have a private jet, and we don't fly in and out of the airport, we don't think anything is happening because we still have to go to Midway. We still have to go to O'Hare. But the good news about that is that we are, as early as this week, talking to large carriers about the opportunity for cargo in and out of that airport. And so we will begin to see the actual growth that not just in the general aviation area, but also in the cargo and other aspects of our aviation. And yes, we are still working to attract the right commercial provider so that you and I can fly in and out of the airport. But there have been so many fits and starts. We want to make sure we have the right partner this time so that they don't fly for 6 months and stop, or that they don't fly for 90 days and stop. I mean, so sometimes it takes a little longer to get the right partner. The other thing you should know is that there is a $1.3 million corporate hangar that is already being constructed, and we already have a tenant. So that just simply means more revenue for the airport. And if anybody ever asks you if there are if anything is going on, tell them that our two largest fixed-based operators, the Gary Jet Center, B. Coleman Aviation, just invested $20 $5 million of their own money. No incentives in the airport. And you don't invest $1 where nothing is happening. So that's a good example. The Alliance Steel Corporation just made the decision about 4 months ago, or at least we announced it, that they are going to move their plant from Bedford Park, Illinois, to Gary, Indiana. Wow. And initially, they had talked about going into Buffington Harbor, and we'll talk a little bit about Buffington Harbor. Ultimately, they decided to occupy the recently vacated Atco Steel plant at the end of 65 and Melton Road. And so that's a great opportunity for them. It's a great opportunity for us because now you're occupying a vacated building. You're looking at 100 jobs that will grow to 130 jobs after full build out. And these jobs are paying on average $31 an hour. They are also looking ultimately to bring a trucking company with them in 2019. And so we have a new corporate citizen in the city of Gary, and we'll have to make sure we connect them with Chuck so they can join the Chamber of Commerce. We also have Fulcrum Bioenergy, and that was an announcement that was made. The Governor Holcomb came up twice last year. He came up in August for the U.S. Steel announcement. He then came up in December for the Fulcrum Bioenergy announcement. And that's significant to have a governor of the state. Now, that's not the only 2 times that he's been to Gary. He came on a Sunday morning right after, in fact, the first Sunday in December, he came to Gary and we sat and talked about all kinds of things for almost 2 hours until I finally looked at my clock. He was on his way to the game. I just knew he wasn't saved. But then I'm like, I gotta go to church. And I was teasing him. I was like, I see you're missing church today, Governor, but I've got to go to church, so you're going to have to keep going west or east to the ladies' basketball game at Notre Dame. But the significance of that is that he cares enough about this community to come on a Sunday morning and talk about opportunities that exist for us to partner together, to hear from us, and to work with us, and that's significant. That's significant. So we met in December. We announced in December 2 things that day. The first was Fulcrum Bioenergy. And Fulcrum is a plant that converts waste or garbage to fuel energy. Now, let me just tell you what it's not. We're not going to be bringing garbage in on barges or in trucks or trains to Buffington Harbor. So that's not what it is. In fact, the solid waste is going to be processed off-site. In fact, outside of the city of Gary. When it comes here for processing, it will be in a confetti form. And that's something that's already underway, even though it's not being turned into jet fuel, but it's going on at the Vexor plant right across from the airport, which is a division of Carmeuse Line. And to just underscore the importance of this $600 million commitment. So, let's do the math. 750, 600 million, 19. In the last 6 months, we've seen over $1.5 billion in investment. That's significant. And so as we talked about at the announcement, we had not only the governor who was present for this announcement, and that was because the state committed $500 million in bonding capacity for this project, but we also had their bankers. And when somebody brings their bankers to an announcement, you can take that to the bank, unintended. So that was really important to have that announcement. And on that same day, the governor announced, not just for Gary, but for many cities throughout Northwest Indiana, the awarding of a local tracks grant, a local tracks award through the Indiana Department of Transportation, where we will receive $15 million to change the infrastructure near North Clark Road on the east side of Buffington Harbor. Let's talk about Buffington Harbor. Buffington Harbor is an opportunity that we have been pursuing in the city of Gary for over 10 years. Over 10 years, we've talked about the opportunity to develop intermodal or multimodal or some type of logistics transportation in the Buffington Harbor footprint. And so, while that has been discussed for all of that time, it was just this year that we were able to get the attention of the leadership of the Indiana General Assembly. They were interested before, but when I say get their attention, they came up here. They came up, they toured the site. We were able to provide information and to really talk about what this meant for employment in the city of Gary, what this meant for investment in the city of Gary, what this meant for opportunity for the citizens of Gary, but also the value proposition of the development of Buffington Harbor for all of Indiana, all of Northwest Indiana and the entire state of Indiana. Well, there's just one technicality. And that's our casino, Majestic Star Casino. Now, you know, we love Majestic Star. After all, they sponsored us today. They've been a tremendous partner in a variety of ways. We've had fires, and they have opened their doors in the city of Gary. They provide economic development in the city of Gary. We love Majestic. In fact, I'm going to get a shirt that goes with my I Heart Gary to say I Heart Majestic.
All right.
But we also believe, and so do they, that they would be better positioned on 8094. Now, a lot of people have asked me where. I can't tell you that. But we're just saying that there is an opportunity, a dual opportunity for Buffington Harbor and for Majestic Star Casino. Now, I want to be careful to let you know that Buffington Harbor is very little about water. Water adds to the modes of transportation, don't get me wrong, but it's a complement to the Port of Indiana and Portage, not a competition. And why is it a complement? The Port of Indiana is a deep sea port, deep water port. It's not a sea, it's lake, but it's a deep water port. Buffington Harbor is really focused, the development of Buffington Harbor would be focused on freight logistics, the development of freight logistics. It's really focused on rail and truck. And yes, there's a water element and an airport element, but rail and truck are the primary modes that we will be focused on. And what we know is that the opportunity is so significant that this will be one of the major pieces of legislation that we are going to pursue. Now, I want to talk about the movement of the casino as well. Because again, we're not looking to do it to the detriment of any other community. We believe that the folks that go to the Horseshoe Casino, who go to Ameristar, they're not going to change just because it's new, because they have their own machine. They have their spot that they like to be. They like certain things about their casino. They made those choices. But there are 300,000 vehicles that pass up and along 8094 every day. We believe that maybe 1,000 of them, or 2 or 3 or 4, will stop in Gary, Indiana. But When casinos were originally approved in the state of Indiana, they were approved not because we just wanted people to gamble, but to catalyze other opportunities for economic development. That has happened very well in many of our communities. And Michigan City is an example. But there are other communities where it has not happened as well. And so we believe that if there is much more room to grow, and if it's much more accessible, not only will we see a larger gaming opportunity there, but we'll see a larger retail opportunity along restaurants and stores and movie theaters, bowling alleys, things that you expect to see in a community of 80,000 people. And so that's what this move is about. That's what the development of Buffington Harbor about. And separate and apart is the development of the Port Commission, again, not because of water, but because of the development opportunity that exists when you have functioning port commissions in communities. Let's talk about investment zones. I have a poster here that talks about so many zones of investment, but I want to focus very briefly on opportunity zones. Last October, the Congress of the United States passed a tax package, and it was widely debated. But here's what I'll tell you. One of the gems in that tax package was the creation of opportunity zones. U.S. Steel is in an opportunity zone. You're sitting in an opportunity zone in Gary. University Park is in an opportunity zone. Atlanta is in an opportunity zone. Miller and the lakefront, the Gary Airport and Buffington Harbor are all in opportunity zones. And what they do is they provide those who would invest their capital gains in a deferred tax opportunity so that if you invest $5 million in Gary, you can defer claiming the income from those capital gains in a way that ultimately, if you invest it long enough, you don't have to claim it at all. Now, for those of you who have that $5 million to invest, you have a lot of choices here. But in order to make sure that we are able to really take advantage of those investments, we've created the Gary Innovation Center because we believe that that any investment opportunity, because of the timing on the opportunity zones, has to be clear, has to provide a clear value proposition, because people just don't invest $5 million or $1 million or $10 million every day. So the Gary Innovation Center will operate out of the Redevelopment Commission. It is being done as a partnership so that we can attract capital investment, particularly to the opportunity zone here in the city of Gary. And so those are not comprehensive, but a significant list of opportunities. What are the threats? I mean, I could stand here and just talk about opportunities and just ignore the threats, but then that would be a little disingenuous. So let's talk about the threats. One of the threats is having the right infrastructure. And we have, throughout the city, I talked about Airport Road. We have seen the completion of the Broadway improvement. That was, both of those were done in partnership with NERC, the Northern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. We are investing in roads throughout the street. There's a significant infrastructure project underway on Lake Street, one that has created a few headaches. But anytime you have improvements, you're going to have some headaches. But a lot of that is being done underground, but in the spring, you will also begin to see the improvements above ground. So we're investing in infrastructure, both water, pavement. You heard me talk about the local tracks investment, the removal of at-grade crossing. All of that is a part of our infrastructure investment. But we also know that sidewalks are important. Right now, there's a building on 7th and Broadway that is finally scheduled to be completed this year, thanks to Burgers people. And as we are preparing to complete it, guess what? There's a vault under the sidewalk. Who knew that? In fact, there are vaults all under the sidewalks throughout this community. Some type of underground tunneling. I don't know why, but they are there. I've never been in one and never plan to go in one, but they exist. But my point is that anytime you have significant investment, private investment, you want to support it through infrastructure. And so we will look for opportunities to do that along with demolition. That is also a part of that. And I will make this announcement, even though it's not business related, it's significant. Many of you know that Darren Van came into this community, a serial killer, and killed victims and hid them in vacant homes. By the end of next month, all of those homes will be demolished. Every home where a woman was killed and hidden. Not only Darren Van, but there was a man who killed a young woman in Maryville, Diamond Lewis. But he brought her to Gary. And so we will start with the demolition of that property on 18th Avenue tomorrow morning. And, you know, you can't change what happened. You certainly can't bring them back. But I think what we owe those families is closure. But there are burnouts throughout this community. And in those burnouts, we believe that that creates not only a risk to adjacent homes and businesses, but it is an eyesore in the community. And so we will continue our hardest hit demolition, but we're also looking for other ways to support both residential and commercial demolition. And that was one of the conversations that we really recently had. The Lake County Commissioners just approved $100,000, and we're going to demolish a building that has been there forever on the corner of 23rd and Adams. We're going to demolish the old vehicle maintenance building on 11th and Massachusetts in the city of New York. And again, just a little bit at a time. We know that there are a lot of buildings that need to come down, but we also know that in order for that to happen, you have to have support. And so recently, and as recently as last Thursday, I had an opportunity to sit with our U.S. Senator Todd Young to talk about the need for funding for commercial demolition. The airport would have never been finished without the support of former Senator Joe Donnelly and our Congressman Pete Visclosky. And we expect to have that same type of working relationship with our newest Senator, Mike Braun, and we've already developed that working relationship with Senator Todd Young around housing and around the need for investment in infrastructure. Another threat is the finances. And we've talked extensively about the financial recovery plan. We've also talked about the internal audit process that we've undergone over the last 3 years, where we have begun to take a closer look at our finances. So every time you see us make a report to the State Board of Accounts about something that we're not comfortable with, because that's the process. It is because we have audited ourselves No one has come in and found it. We found it. And we've said, because we found this, because we understand the process, we want to make this report to you, but we are going to also get the details of it so that we can not only find it, but correct and improve it. And starting this year, that internal auditor is no longer going to report to the controller, but they are going to report directly to me and the president of the council, because that provides independence from the person that they are, who's over the finances and that they are looking at. And so those are the types of things that we have to address if we are going to continue to see businesses come to the community. Blight, I talked about the demolition, but it's not just vacant and abandoned buildings. It is also the weeds and the overgrown lots. We are continuing to work on that. This year, we hired a second crew that started at noon, that ended at 7. That made a significant difference. And I'm going to tell you, that second crew, they were motivated. Now, the first crew was good. Don't get me wrong. But that second crew was just hungry. And so they would come in at noon, and one day I went out, and I wasn't working with them that particular day. Some of you know that I do work with general services from time to time and cut grass. But this second crew cleared an entire block, it seemed like, of weeds and blight and vacant fields in about an hour and a half. And I was just, they had those billy goat mowers, and they were like, we're going to get this done. So that's another commitment that we have to have. And it's around our corridors. Have you noticed the development and growth on Grant Street in the city of Gary? Have you seen that? I mean, between really the 8094 exchange all the way to Ridge Road, I mean, it's like totally transformed. Well, if you're going to have that type of transformation, you've got to keep it in order. And not just Grant Street, but Broadway, 25th Avenue, all of our commercial corridors, Lake Street, Melton Road. And so we're committed to doing a better job of that, because we know how important it is to getting people to invest. In fact, on Broadway, we're having a conversation right now with folks who have gotten a little heartburn from the new bus terminals that have been placed up and down Broadway. And so we're working to, with progress. And, the express bus route is progress for the community. But with that type of progress, with the new bus shelters, there is always a need for adjustment, and we're committed to working through that. The last thing that I would say is probably our biggest threat is perception. Late last year, we had a challenge with making a payment for salt. And because we were public about that challenge, we told the council, we were able to get an appropriation, pay the bill, address it. There was this rumor that has continued to this day. I went and visited my aunt in the nursing home yesterday, and she was, she's rolling alongside of me as we're going up. She said, "Hey, I got a question for you. Is it true that Gary has no salt?" And I was like, "No, Aunt Helen, we have plenty of salt." In fact, they were out dropping salt all this weekend, clearing, and I rode. In fact, I got a ride to church Sunday morning. I called Carmen. I said, "I'll meet you at St. John." We visited St. John with the Deltas. Happy belated Founders Day stores. And I arrived to church in in one of our largest snow removal vehicles, in a plow, in a snow plow. And so, you know, I'm getting out of this plow in this dress, and, you know, it was really a sight. But I wanted to see what our general services workers, what our folks saw. And I learned so much about taking out the middle first and then going back to the sides. I learned what happens when people are courteous and they move their cars, and when they're not courteous and don't move them. I learned, you know, how you salt and when you salt and where you salt. But the bottom line is there was a perception out there that we didn't have salt. And while I will be the first to acknowledge that when it got icy early and snowed a bit early in November, that our response was not as good as it could have or should have been. It was not because we did not have salt. We had salt at all times, and we continue to have salt, and we just ordered another 500 tons of salt. And so, you know, but again, perception. And so much of that perception, it comes from what people say. It comes from what we say. And so what we need you to do is be ambassadors of good news. How many of you have gotten our new newsletter, Good News Gary? If you don't have it, please contact us so that we can make sure that you are on the list, not because we're only talking about good news, but because we know there are other sources to tell about the other news.
That's right.
And we want you to know about the positive things that are happening in the city. And so, you know, what we're saying to you is help us to spread the good news. Amazon was open and operating in the city of Gary.
Absolutely.
500 jobs. Contracting opportunities. In fact, I forgot to talk about them earlier. There is an opportunity for those who are entrepreneurial to start their own business delivering for Amazon. They are cutting out the middleman, if you will, the post office and FedEx. They want to partner with local entrepreneurs, people who want to have as few as one person, just themselves, or as many as 40, working to deliver packages for Amazon right from that distribution center that is located in Gary, Indiana at 65 and 15th Avenue. And so my point is that not many people knew about it, even though we were talking about it. And while we didn't get HQ2, we got a place where people can start their own businesses as a partner with Amazon. And the significant part of that is that they hired a local flooring company, a young man who's, I think, 28 years old, to do the flooring for that new facility and invested $4 million without one incentive from the city of Gary. So, but, you know, it's okay to talk about whatever's in the news. We all do it. But what I would suggest to you is make sure that your conversation is accurate. Make sure that your conversation is factual. And make sure that your conversation is balanced. I go out of my way to make my email address and my telephone number available. You can text or email me at any time, and since I do that, I might as well do it now. My email is kfreemanwilson, no hyphen, at ci.gary.in.us. Again, kfreemanwilson at ci.gary.in.us. My phone number, 219-293-5329. Again, 219-293-5329. Now, I don't always get friendly text messages at that point. And some of them are a little on the, kind of borderline to the point that I let the chief take a look at those or somebody on his team. But I'm not going to stop giving my number out because I'm not scared. But the reality is that I want to, if there's ever a question about information, I want you to come to the source. Because one thing that you know that I will do is I won't sugarcoat it, and I'll tell you, yep, that's a problem, or no, that is inaccurate and untrue, which is something that I say more often than I'd like to, simply because misinformation gets out there. Stay tuned to not only our newsletter, Good News Gary, but our Good News Gary show. I want to close with this. I had the unique opportunity last Wednesday to sit, and thanks to Indiana University Northwest for hosting the event, to sit with 4 of my predecessors, all who had different perspectives, but each to a person who worked hard to move this community forward. And as I sat there, I went back to when I was 7 and first had the opportunity to meet Mayor Richard Gordon Hatcher and in the basement of my parents' home, because he mentioned that the way that people campaigned back in the day, and Judge Arredondo probably remembers this because he was a little kid then too. They did it through house parties, going from house to house. And in talking about that, he talked about how it was important for people to talk to their neighbors about the candidate of their choice. Well, now we have social media. Or the Book of Faces, as I heard Minister Jackie Drago say. But I think it's still important that those of us who want to spread positive messages, those of us who want to spread good news, to talk to our friends and relatives, and even if you're on social media, to spread that out. Because I sincerely believe that there are more people who want to hear about good news than there are people who want to hear about and spread the not so good news. Now, it has a place because you need all the facts, but I think that balance is so important. And so the other thing that I did on Wednesday, and this is a nonpartisan forum, but I thought I'd just let you know, is that I signed up to run for my 3rd term. I did that because with all of its challenges, with all of its sleepless nights, and with all of the gray hairs that you can't always see, it is the absolute best job professionally that I have had, to work for my friends, my neighbors, my colleagues, my family. And I believe that when you start something, you ought to finish it. And so I am going to place my name before the voters of this community once again. Thank you so much.
All right, man, we want to thank you so much. Listen, the fire chief is here, so you are officially on lockdown. Nobody can leave for the next 5 minutes. So let's don't violate the fire marshal's orders. What I'd like now is where did Barry leave from Majestic? Barry, come up here. Palmer, Cindy, come up. I want my sponsors to be able to have this photo opportunity with our speaker. Also, let me mention our table sponsors as well while you're leaving. Haywood and Fleming. Edgewater.